I knew something shady was going on the second I stepped into my backyard and found a bunch of strangers lounging in my pool, grilling burgers, and blasting music like it was their house. At first, I thought I had the wrong yard. But no, this was definitely mine. Confused and honestly a little stunned, I walked around, trying to piece together what was happening. That's when I saw her, Karen, my neighbor from across the street with her arms folded, sipping from a red Solo cup like she owned the place. Turns out, while I was out of town for a weekend work trip, Karen decided my empty yard was the perfect spot to host her cousin's birthday party. And how did she get in? She used the code I once gave her for emergencies only. Clearly, throwing a loud party with people I've never met wasn't quite what I had in mind when I shared it. I felt violated, embarrassed, and honestly, furious. She acted like it was no big deal, brushing me off with a smug, "Relax, we cleaned up." But that's not the point. She crossed a line. And if Karen thought she could take advantage of my trust without consequences, she was about to learn a lesson in boundaries, one she wouldn't forget. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I smiled, walked back into my house, and changed the code that same night. But this time, I decided to share it again, with a different group. The local biker club that meets a few blocks away, who, believe it or not, are some of the nicest folks I've met. I figured if Karen likes uninvited guests so much, maybe she won't mind if a few more drop by next time. What happened next? Let's just say Karen wasn't prepared, and things got really interesting. To understand why this hit such a nerve, for me, you've got to know a bit more about Karen. She's not just any neighbor, she's that neighbor. The one who watches every move you make from her window, who complains about your grass being half an inch too long, and who somehow always has time to insert herself into things that don't concern her. She's the self-appointed HOA queen, even though we don't technically have an HOA. And while I've always tried to keep things civil, she's been pushing boundaries for months. There was the time she accidentally parked her car in my driveway when her cousin came over. Then she once knocked on my door at 6 a.m. because my trash bins were still out from the night before. And I let it all slide, kept things cool. But using my private gate code to throw a party in my yard while I was gone? That was a new level. I couldn't stop thinking about it. She didn't even apologize. She just smirked and said, "You weren't using it anyway." So when I bumped into the local biker club at the diner the next morning, something clicked. I've chatted with a few of them before. They're regulars in town, always respectful. Even helped shovel snow off some of the elderly neighbors' sidewalks last winter. The idea wasn't about revenge exactly, more like a teachable moment. I casually mentioned I'd be updating my gate code, and if they ever needed a place to hang out, my backyard was open. What I didn't expect was how quickly word spread. By the following weekend, things were already set in motion. Karen had no clue. She was out trimming her hedges, as usual, when the sound of loud engines started rolling down the block. I was watching from my porch, coffee in hand, wondering just how far this would go. The rumble of the engines echoed through the quiet street like a storm rolling in. One by one, the bikes lined up in front of my house. Gleaming chrome, black leather, and the kind of presence that makes people peek through their blinds. Karen was frozen mid-snip with her garden shears, eyes wide, jaw practically on the sidewalk. I didn't say a word, just gave a polite nod to the guys as they parked and started unloading coolers and folding chairs into my backyard, like they'd done it 100 times before. To be clear, this wasn't some rowdy takeover. These guys were chill, respectful, organized, even brought their own trash bags. But the idea of them being there? That was enough to set Karen off. I watched her pace back and forth on her porch, clearly trying to decide if she should call someone or march over herself. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't move, just watched from a distance like a cat who didn't know how to handle the new dog on the block. I heard from another neighbor later that Karen had been telling people she was concerned about a gang presence in the area. Funny, considering she didn't seem too concerned when she let her cousin and 20 strangers trash my yard. But now that I had guests on my own property, she was suddenly worried about the neighborhood image. That's Karen for you. Meanwhile, the guys from the club were enjoying the sunny day. Someone brought a portable speaker, they grilled some ribs, and a few even helped fix the latch on my back gate that had been sticking for months. It was actually kind of nice, if you ignored the icy stares coming from across the street. But the real kicker? I started getting text messages, anonymous ones. Things like, "You're making a scene and this isn't over." I hadn't given my number out. Not to them, not to anyone in the neighborhood. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just mad, she was planning something. The messages kept coming, short, creepy, always from random numbers. Stuff like, "You're ruining this street," or "Enjoy it while you can." I wasn't scared exactly, but I definitely wasn't brushing it off either. Karen had always been passive-aggressive, but this felt different. It felt like she was pushing into something she didn't fully understand, like she was trying to play a game without knowing the rules. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see how far she'd take it. The biker club came by a few, more times that week, never late, never loud, always respectful. But Karen's behavior shifted fast. She stopped waving at passing cars, started whispering to the mail carrier. And then one afternoon, I noticed a man in a polo and khakis taking photos of my house from the sidewalk. When I stepped outside, he quickly turned and walked off. No explanation, just gone. Later that evening, someone left a flyer in my mailbox. No return address, just bold text that said, "Preserve neighborhood standards," with a list of concerns about noise, property values, and unwanted visitors. It was clearly aimed at me, but again, no one would own up to it. Classic Karen move, but cleaner, more calculated, like she was trying to drag me into some kind of neighborhood showdown. Meanwhile, word about the biker club's visits started spreading. A couple of other neighbors gave me weird looks at the grocery store. One even asked if I was starting a club or something. But others, they were curious. One guy down the street said, "Honestly, I'd rather have them here than another one of Karen's brunches." That made me laugh, but also made me realize this whole thing was turning into something bigger than just me and her. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling something was brewing. The kind of quiet before a storm. Karen wasn't done. And she was playing a longer game than I thought. And just when I thought it couldn't get any weirder, I got an unexpected knock at the door. Right after midnight, the knock came again, slow, heavy, and way too calm for that hour. I stood at the door, heart racing, wondering if I should even open it. Most people don't show up at midnight for a friendly chat. I peeked through the peephole and froze. It wasn't a biker, it wasn't a cop, it was Karen's husband. I hadn't seen him much. He kept to himself, quiet type. But now he was standing there, hands in his jacket pockets, looking like he had something serious to say. I opened the door just enough to hear him, and he leaned in slightly. "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of whatever this is. But Karen, she's gone too far." I blinked, not sure what to say. He glanced over his shoulder like he wasn't even supposed to be there, and added, "She's been sending those messages. And now she's trying to get the city involved. Like real permits and code enforcement stuff. Just be careful." Before I could ask any questions, he turned and walked off, head down, disappearing into the shadows between the houses. I stood there in silence, still gripping the doorknob. This wasn't just a neighborly grudge anymore. Karen was trying to hit where it would hurt most, using the system. Permits, noise complaints, safety violations. Even if nothing was illegal, enough pressure from the city could make things complicated and expensive. The next morning, I found a bright orange notice zip-tied to my fence. Pending inspection, unpermitted gatherings, potential safety hazards. I hadn't even had more than a dozen people over at a time. Karen clearly wanted to bury me in red tape. But then came the real twist. That same day, one of the bikers, Terry, the big guy with the beard and vintage Harley, came by with a weird look on his face. "Hey man," he said, "you might want to know. Someone's been asking around about us, like digging into people's jobs and families, private stuff." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about noise or property lines. Karen had started something she couldn't control, and now someone else was pulling strings behind the scenes. I didn't sleep that night. Between the city notice, the warning from Karen's husband, and Terry's news, it was clear this had gone way beyond a neighbor dispute. Someone was actively trying to ruin lives now, and it all traced back to Karen. But what she hadn't counted on was how close-knit the biker club really was, and how well-connected a few of them happened to be. Terry wasn't just some weekend rider. He used to work in cybersecurity. Another guy, Rick, had a brother in the city's zoning office. Within 48 hours, they helped me dig up something that changed the whole game. Karen had submitted multiple anonymous complaints not just about me, but about 3 other neighbors, all people she'd had small arguments with over the years. She'd created fake email accounts, submitted phony evidence, and even claimed one neighbor was running an illegal business from their garage. We compiled everything: screenshots, timestamps, witness statements, and gave it to a friend of Rick's, who worked in the city records department. That orange notice on my fence? Turns out it was processed without any actual inspection, just a bunch of forwarded forms and hearsay. It got tossed out immediately once real eyes were on it. And Karen? Well, she got flagged for submitting false reports, which could lead to fines or even legal action if she kept going. Word got out. Fast. Karen stopped trimming her hedges. Her blinds stayed closed for days. But just when I thought it was over, the twist hit. A realtor came by my house asking if I'd be interested in selling. He said there was renewed interest in the block lately, specifically in the properties closest to Karen's. When I asked why, he smiled and said, "Apparently there's a developer looking to buy up the corner lots for some upscale condos. Just needs 1 or 2 more pieces to make it work." That's when it clicked. Karen wasn't just trying to kick me out for revenge. She was trying to clear the way for a payout. The parties, the complaints, the pressure, it was all part of something way bigger than I ever saw coming. Once I realized Karen's real motive wasn't about noise or neighborhood peace, but about property deals and pushing people out, everything started making sense. She didn't just want me gone. She wanted control. If a few of us sold under pressure, it would open the door for a bigger deal, and she was clearly hoping to cash in when it happened. But the plan backfired. After the city dismissed the complaints and flagged her name, people around the block started talking. Quietly at first, but then more openly. Turns out Karen had rubbed a lot of people the wrong way for years. I wasn't the only one who'd felt pushed around. A few neighbors even came by to thank me for not backing down. The biker club? They stuck around too, but toned it down out of respect. We kept it casual, just good people hanging out in a backyard, nothing for anyone to report. Karen didn't move, but she went quiet. The developer interest faded once it was clear no one else on the street was selling. I guess not every plan pays off. Her husband still nods at me sometimes when he walks the dog, but we've never talked about that midnight visit again. I changed the gate code for good this time, didn't give it to anyone except close friends. Lesson learned. Trust can be a powerful thing, but you've got to guard it, especially when someone sees your backyard not as a place to relax, but as a step in their bigger game. In the end, the drama didn't destroy the block. It actually brought some of us closer. And now, when I sit out back with a cold drink and hear the low rumble of bikes pulling up, I just smile. Karen taught me a lot. Mostly, who not to trust with a code.